Thank you very much. The distinguished chairperson of the session, Dr. Ram Sharan Mahat, the distinguished panelists, audience, ladies and gentlemen. As they say that path-breaking changes or progress of a different level always call for critical departure. Critical departure in thinking, critical departure in terms of identifying where the country and the enabling environment has done well and where things require adjustment. I would like to begin by talking about the reforms which started back in 1992. It was a time when the country had just embarked into a second phase of democratic movement. A new constitution was promulgated. The whole country was euphoric. Decades of suppressed aspirations of the people in terms of growth and economic prosperity had remained underutilized. It was also globally a phase when the liberal, private sector-led liberal forms of economies were being pushed forward, including in Nepal. Global partner institutions were working to that goal, opening new sectors, removing barriers, doing away with monopolies, whether state-led monopolies or private. This was a time where Nepal opened, and coincidentally we have Dr. Mahat here. He was one of the architects of this process. The economy was opened in the field of education, health, private sector involved power resources, power projects, IPPs, financial institutions. A host of new financial institutions were allowed to function. Otherwise, they were very limited to count on, still dominated by the state-owned banks. Aviation, it was a phase of a total revolution in the private sector's entry into aviation. All the private airlines that we fly with on are products of the vision of that time, and real estate. Based on a study, 33 billion of Nepalese investment, private sector-led investment, went into these sectors, which today accounts for 32% of the GDP. That's how the whole composition of the economy was restructured, moving away from a heavily agri-based economy to an economy which was not only dependent on tourism and in manufacturing industries of some sort, but new sectors came into being. Sadly, this process could not be given continuity. There were political never-ending transitions until recently, 25 governments in 26 years. However, once you open the door, you can't close them easily. The liberal form of economy, the private sector, the opportunities that were thrown open to the private sector, nobody could shut down. And I call it a sheer sense of inherent inertia driven by the policy regime that was crafted at that time, which has given continuity to the growth of private sector investment till date. No new significant mention-worthy reforms have moved forward from there. If at all, we are worried that in some respects a regressive environment is being seen on many fronts. I like to give in this context an example of India. We all know at what pace India is moving forward in terms of structuring their economy. Huge amount of infrastructural investment has taken place. Only recently, on the 15th of August, Indian government announced that 127 lakh crore is going to be spent just to connect water in every homes in India. That's the scale of demonetization was done, GST was introduced. I'm sure there were logics, there were sound economic basis to have supported these pronouncements and these policies. But everybody also knows that instead of the economy moving forward in terms of growth, the result was somewhat different. Today, unfortunately, the growth has slowed down. In fact, people in India are worried that it is entering a phase of recession. As per the latest information, the growth is going to hover around 5.5%, whereas India was one of the fastest growing economy until a couple of years ago. When I look back to why this, the system is functioning, the government is very proactive, new ideas are being pushed forward, huge amount of new initiatives under very attractive global slogan from Make in India to Clean India to whatever is announced every day, but why is not happening? Why is the capital market not performing? Why is the export lagging behind? And my conclusion is that they've not been able to take the private sector along. In the process of trying to correct things abruptly, many of the private sector, many of the problems which have been continuing in the Indian system, and problems do not happen overnight, they accumulate. Most of the EPC companies, the engineering companies, construction companies have been wiped out. I'm not justifying what they used to do or how they used to function. Many of the business houses who used or misused the system and borrowed hundreds of thousands of crores from the banking system, they came under scrutiny. As a consequence, in trying to clean up the system overnight, the whole economy went down. So what I'm trying to say is there has to be a delicate balance. You cannot write laws or promulgate policies by picking up a wrong example. You have to pick up right examples, success stories, and build on it. You've got to create an environment where you are also taking effective actions to correct the anomalies of the past. Anomalies do not take place, or corruption do not take place just because one party initiates it. It is a nexus between the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the businessmen. It is something that require a very serious and thorough thinking. And unless we fix this equation of relationship, unless the bureaucrats are inspired to implement the policies which are announced by the government or the politicians, and the private sector believe in it and they follow voluntarily, and if all work together, there is no room for any corruption, because policies are aligned, interests are aligned, the larger vision of a country is aligned. So what I'm trying to say here is, I think our country somewhat is going through a similar phase. On one hand, there is a need of correcting many of the anomalies of the past, but on the other hand, we also have the need to open up new avenues. If the right kind of a policy is initiated, how things can transform even in a country like Nepal. Let me give you two examples. I briefly talked about it yesterday too. The cement industry. We always had mines of limestone unexploited for centuries. We always used to talk about cement industry, but it was beyond the capacity of the private sector to take the roads and the electricity to the site where the limestones were located. One policy tweaking has seen most of these being fully exploited in the interest of Nepal, and Nepal will have a net surplus of clinker production in next 2 years' time. Power, IPPs. I'm not saying we've been able to create a highly investor-friendly, enabling environment when we talk of IPP, but broadly speaking, because of the take or pay and a reasonably interesting PPA, we are seeing that over 2,500 megawatts of private power projects are under implementation. There is virtually no load shedding anymore in the backdrop of what used to happen. And I believe that if certain further corrective actions are taken and a few good examples are created, Nepal will become not only an exporter of a significant size of power to not only India but also to Bangladesh. Let's talk about special economic zones or industrial zones. There is a big thrust that the government wants to give in building industrial zones in all the 7 provinces, special economic zones in all these provinces, wherever possible, export processing zone. However, there is a problem here, and since we are discussing a new phase of restructuring the economy in the context of opening new areas of investment, I wish to give special emphasis to these areas. I think to expect significant further investment in cement and power, it's something that we should not talk about, at least for the indigenous youths. Now is the time to work on these sectors. However, if you look at the history of whatever we've done, it's not very favorable. The special economic zone of Bhairava, we talked about it yesterday, there are no buyers. There is one industry. Why? What is the problem? The garment-specific industrial zone that was started recently in Birganj received no application. There are no takers. Why? Why there is every state, every province is very keen to come up with investor-friendly, or in other words, very attractive investment packages, including projects, and we could clearly see that 7 chief ministers of the 7 provinces were very enthusiastic to draw the attentions of the investors community and the donor partners in what they are trying to accomplish. But why we are not able to bring in a kind of a focus that these provinces require in areas of their comparative advantages. Every state need not compete for the same thing. I think nature has given great opportunities for each one of our province, if you ask me. I again wish to repeat, the province number 1 can be a great new destination for education. So why is it stopping? What is stopping us from getting there? You need to provide land. You need, for education, you need to have significant big-sized plots of land at terms which the industry can afford. You need to provide infrastructure, the road, electricity. You need to create institutions to train manpower, create quality faculties, and the negative taboo against private sector in education versus the public sector has to be dealt with. You cannot mix the two. There are very good examples of special successful economic zones in India and China. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's a question of simply learning from these success stories of some of our neighboring countries and the new emerging markets and replicating the same. And you don't even have to wait for institutions like CNI to come and make a recommendation. We did that many times. Just go to the net. You will find the policies that are promulgated, whether it's by Jammu and Kashmir or Himachal or the Seven Sisters in the northeastern part of India. What is stopping Pokhara becoming, from Pokhara, or let's say the state number, province number 4, from becoming, taking it as a next level of entertainment to tourism to holistic destination? Even the airport is being constructed. But again, to invite international player who can not only establish infrastructure, but take it to a new level, it will require a new mindset. I saw many interesting projects have been very beautifully compiled in the book, which was distributed here. Okay. That is very important. However, what is more important is for that province to understand what is the area of their comparative advantage. When India embarked upon, during the time of Manmohan Singh, when he was the finance minister, in trying to restructure their economic policies, they hired Price Waterhouse to do a country's private comparative study. CII was instrumental. CII and PwC worked together to conduct a study that where does India's strength lies vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis the Asian tigers, vis-a-vis the other countries of the world. And they concluded that it's not the hardware, it is the software, the brain power of India. And that's what could give birth to enterprises like Infosys, to Wipro and Tata Consultants, who became the global power, global players in the world. I think Nepal needs to exactly do the same. Our 7 provinces need to get into the exercise of understanding their comparative strengths, and each one of them I have no doubts about it, a big scale. I talked about Lumbini yesterday. I talked about, of course, not to talk about the far western part of the country, which is full of, which can generate 80, 90, 100,000 megawatts of power to India's benefit and Nepal's benefit. And if today, with the kind of enthusiasm that is being seen, if we cannot address those, our mutual aspirations, and cannot solve that problem despite a 2/3 majority government being in place, and despite a public pronouncement of Prime Minister Modi that we are prepared to walk that extra mile, then there is something wrong. Lumbini can become And even in international, the basic infrastructure is now also beginning to take place. It can become the hub, it can become the Mecca, Medina for the Buddhists all over the world. But on the contrary, and sadly, a Baut Paripat is being crafted across the border, not within Nepal. There are huge amount of travel-related, religious travel-related infrastructure that's being set up in all the other points which links Buddha. And Buddha's own birthplace and the whole place continues to limp at a snail's pace in moving forward. So my submission is that this is where I see the private sector opportunity for the private sector. Private sector need to work with the state government, with the help of the federal government, in first of all crafting the areas of comparative advantage and thrust areas of thrust for these provinces, and then coming out with investment packages. Funding is going to be one of the biggest problems. I heard some of the speakers talk yesterday, including the Honorable Minister in India, that monetize the balance sheet, monetize your balance sheet, the state's power balance sheet, and create new capacity. You must have a proper balance sheet first. You know, you can't monetize. You need to have disposable earnings, disposable capital. You must have in the financial institutions the capacity to fund. What can the local institutions fund? What can the private sector fund? What can the donor as well as the international banking institution can fund? I think there has to be the right kind of a balance. And unless this is done, we will, for the rest of our lives, we will continue to blame each other. And the result will be minimal. I think it's also a question of looking at the larger level, at the bigger level, how we can bring in all these players together to deliver these ideas and make these ideas into a reality. Pick up the good examples of Nepal. There are some very good examples of Nepal, as well as good examples of the region in India, in China. Make use of our resources which can stand out the competition. And there are many areas where we can still stand out the competition. And then look at the financing. And this restructuring will somewhat require very ruthless, very, very serious homework, more or less like an entrepreneur does in creating a new enterprise in a struggling environment. There are no easy solutions. I think I would like to leave these thoughts for your consideration. I think I've tried to share the issues that we face today. While summing up, we face today in terms of building a more cohesive private sector, bureaucrat and politician relationship, so that one part cannot get away by blaming the other. People would like to see the promises being delivered. Here, the CEO of the Board of Investment is sitting here. We signed many contracts 7-8 months ago. People like to see what happened to those contracts. Where are they stuck, if at all? People would like to see, even from the private sector, that is the private sector prepared to extend that hand, which is meaningful in terms of coming out with viable, fundable, doable projects which can stand the pressure of the two of the world's greatest factory around us, which is India and China. That's the kind of a competition we are talking about. Thank you very much.